The sun hung heavy over the village gate as the Brahmin stood alone, his shadow stretching long across the dusty path. In his trembling hands, he cradled a single humble clay pot. This vessel held his entire world for the day, a small portion of coarse white flour. He had spent the long, grueling morning walking from door to door, enduring the indifferent stares of his neighbors. This was his only reward for hours of humility. With a sigh of exhaustion, he turned toward his small, desolate hut. Every step felt heavy, his sandals clicking against the dry earth. Upon entering his quiet home, he carefully hung the pot on a sturdy wooden peg directly above his sleeping mat. He secured it with meticulous care, ensuring it would not fall. As he lay down, his body ached, but his eyes remained fixed on the clay vessel, the only sign of his survival. As the silence of the hut enveloped him, his mind began to wander far beyond the cracked walls. He stared at the pot, and in his mind's eye, the flour transformed. "If a famine comes," he whispered to the shadows, "I can sell this flour for a handful of silver coins." The thought sparked a fire in his heart. With that silver, he wouldn't buy bread, he would buy a female goat. He could see her clearly, grazing in the fields. Soon, that goat would have kids, and within a few years, he would have a whole herd. The Brahmin smiled, his eyes glazing over. He would trade those goats for cows, and the cows for powerful water buffaloes. He visualized the rhythmic churning of milk into rich, golden butter. He would become the primary supplier for the entire region. The coins would pile up, clinking together in a beautiful melody of imaginary success. He wasn't just a beggar anymore. He was a man of burgeoning commerce. The fantasy expanded like a rising tide. With the profits from his buffaloes and his butter, he would buy magnificent horses, creatures of speed and grace. He saw himself riding through the village, the very people who had ignored him now bowing in respect. He would acquire acres of fertile land, where the golden wheat would sway in the breeze as far as the eye could see. "I shall build a mansion," he decided, his heart racing. He pictured a grand estate with high, white walls and gardens filled with exotic flowers and cool, shaded fountains. No longer would he sleep on a thin mat in a dusty hut. He would be a landowner, a man of influence and power. Within those walls, he would find a beautiful wife from a noble family. They would have a son, a boy with bright eyes and a quick mind. He could almost hear the child's laughter echoing through the marble hallways of his dream. He was the master of his own destiny. In the heat of his vivid daydream, the Brahmin saw his son growing older. He pictured himself walking through the lush gardens, attempting to teach the boy the ancient wisdom of the world. But in his mind, the boy was stubborn. The child turned away, ignoring his father's commands to study. "Listen to me," the Brahmin shouted in his mind, his face reddening with phantom anger. The boy laughed and ran toward the stables, defying his father's authority. The Brahmin felt a surge of genuine fury. He would not tolerate such disrespect in his grand house. He imagined the boy tripping and falling, and in a moment of blind, disciplinary rage, he decided he must act. "I will teach you a lesson you will never forget," he roared internally. His body reacted to the surge of adrenaline. He lifted his right leg high and delivered a swift, powerful kick into the air, aiming for the imaginary boy. There was a sickening, sharp crack. His foot didn't hit air. It struck the clay pot with full force. Time seemed to freeze as the vessel tumbled from its peg, crashing onto the hard dirt floor below. The explosion of white flour filled the small room, coating the Brahmin's mat, his clothes, and his skin in a fine, ghostly dust. The silence that followed was deafening. He sat up slowly, his heart still pounding, looking down at the jagged shards of clay scattered across the floor. There was no mansion. There were no horses. There was no sun. There was only the white dust settling on his feet. He reached out and touched the flour, realizing it was all he had left, and now it was ruined. A bitter clarity washed over him. He realized that the wealth he had built in his mind was lighter than the dust now coating his hands. He picked up his old broom and began the slow, rhythmic task of sweeping. He understood now that a future is not forged in the clouds of the mind, but built with steady hands and the work of the present moment. The dream was gone, but the lesson remained.